I had just submitted a background check and was waiting for the results. But I was not worried because I was confident nothing was gonna come up. I was submitting this background check because, frankly, I needed a job. I had just gotten back from grad school abroad and I had no money whatsoever. So I decided that I was going to go and do what I had been doing before, which was working with dogs. I had been working at a dog daycare, and I had also been doing freelance dog training, dog sitting, dog walking, you name it. Now, I didn't want to go back to the place that I had been working originally because the people I had worked for were frankly crazy. So I decided that I was going to freelance this, and I thought that if I was able to get enough clients in this freelance dog whatevering business that I could be set. This would be my regular gig. One of my really good friends, and actually one of my clients, recommended that I join a website to get more clients, and which we will henceforth refer to as caregivercraigslist.com. And caregivercraigslist.com, the whole point of it is for people in need of care to be matched up with potential caregivers. So they don't just do pet care, they do child care, maid service, adult care, senior care, things like that. And I thought this would be a great idea. It'd be a wonderful way for me to connect with many different people and build up a client base. So I made a profile. Now, as part of this profile, they recommended that you submit a background check. And that will go on your profile, so it'll let everyone know that you're not an axe-wielding maniac when you're going to come and walk their dogs. Which I totally agreed with. That totally made sense to me. So I shell out 25 of my ever-dwindling dollars, and I submit the background check. 5 days later, I get an email saying, your account has been temporarily suspended pending an investigation. Something had come up. But this was impossible. This was absolutely unfathomable because 6 years prior to that incident, I had been given a deferred sentence with the promise that if I had kept my nose clean for a year, that there would be absolutely nothing on my record. So this was just absolutely not possible. 6 years ago, I'd been driving home to visit my parents. I was a freshman in college. I went to college here at the Evergreen State College, and my hometown is in Pullman, Washington, on the other side of the state. So I was driving home in the fall on a Friday afternoon, and it was one of those absolutely amazing, like early fall days where it's still really hot, but there's just a whisper of coldness in the air, and it just creates this really exhilarating kind of energy, and I was just in a wonderful mood. And I'm driving down the highway, and I'm having the best day because the wind is blowing my hair about. I am in my favorite t-shirt, which is light blue with a lined drawing of Napoleon Dynamite that I got at Hot Topic for $5 on clearance. And I am singing along at the top of my lungs to my favorite Broadway musical soundtrack, the original cast recording of Chicago. Now, if you've ever been to the eastern side of the state, most of the time the way you're going to travel that way is going down I-90, which is going to pretty much cut through the entire middle of the state. Now, for me, when I go to Pullman, Washington, there's a point at which you reach the Columbia River, past the Cascades, past Ellensburg, where the road will fork. If you keep going to the left, you will go on to Spokane, continuing on I-90. But if you go to the right, you will get on Highway 26 and head over to Pullman, Washington. Now, Highway 26 is a very long and lonely highway. It's mostly a single-lane highway, and it's very rare you're going to see many other people on it. Maybe some trucks delivering things back and forth, but most of the time, you're all by yourself, which is why most of the people who drive on Highway 26 speed, and I was no exception. I was only going 10 miles over, but this was pretty much normal, pretty much standard fare. However, when you are driving on Highway 26, you must know that there are some speed traps. Now, I had forgotten about one of these speed traps, one of the most prominent ones, and I'm giving you all a foretelling warning. If you are ever driving down Highway 26, it's right before Othello, Washington. Right after you pass Royal City, the road will start to gently divert going east and slowly start to curve south. Then you'll get to this long expanse of road where you'll be able to see the whole road, and in the distance you'll see where the road kind of curves back to the east, and you'll also be able to see a farm that advertises fresh Angus beef. Now, I wasn't paying attention to how fast I was going. I was too busy singing at the top of my lungs along with Jerry Orbach. They both reached for the gun, having way too good of a time to realize how fast I was going. And it was only at the crescendo of that song that I saw the lights flashing in my rearview mirror. I saw this and I thought, oh God. It was my very first time being pulled over. I thought, well, I'm gonna get a speeding ticket. I was speeding. That's fine. I've been working extra this month. I have the money. I'll be able to pay it. It will not be a problem. So I pull over, turn off my car. The cop gets out of his car and comes around to the passenger side of my car. I roll down the window and I keep my hands on the wheel because I remember my friend Brian Joe telling me, always keep your hands on the wheel. Do not move them because if you do, they'll probably shoot you. So I had my hands on the wheel and very calmly. And he asked the usual, do you know how fast you were going? I said, no, officer, of course I didn't. I'm so sorry. That was totally my bad. My fault entirely. Looks like I was gonna get out of this. It was gonna be totally fine, hopefully a warning, and that would be that. And he said, okay, well, can I see your license and registration? And I said, sure. And I said, officer, my registration is in my glove box. Is it okay if I take my hands off the wheel and open the glove box? He says, sure, which I do. Now, instead of my registration popping out, my brand new bright pink and green pipe rolls out of the glove box. In almost a comic fashion, it kind of went dunk-dunk-dunk. And there's no possible way that this cop did not see it. I did not know it was there because the night before, my boyfriend and I had been smoking weed and he had left it in my glove compartment and I was too blasé to even remember that he had left it in there the night before. And he goes, what's that? And I look at him and I say, it's not mine. It is mine, but of course I'm gonna lie. I say, I know you're not gonna believe me, officer, but it's my boyfriend's, whom after we are done here, I'm going to promptly break up with. He asks me, do you have any weed in the car? And I say, no. And I think to myself, please God, don't let there be any weed in the car. He says, are you lying to me? And I said, no. Please God, don't let me be lying to this cop. He asks me to get out of the car, which I do. And he takes me over to his car and he opens the back and I sit down and he closes the door. Now, if you've ever been in the back of a cop car, it is not comfortable. It is a tiny seat, and I am only 5'2", but I was still very cramped with my knees up to the grate. It's hot, the seat is made of hard plastic, and I'm just sitting there stunned, listening to the horrible pop country that is on this cop's radio as I watch him search through my car. And later after this incident, I had a friend tell me, oh, you should have cried. You would have gotten out of it. And I told him straight up, I'm like, I was too stunned to cry. I just couldn't believe this was happening. I was too busy thinking, I'm going to have to call my mother from an Othello jail and tell her that she has to come pick me up and that I'm not going to be coming visiting home this weekend. So he's searching the car, and I am praying that he does not find any weed in the car. And it seems like an eternity while he's searching the car, but he doesn't find anything. Thank goodness. He comes back and gets me, opens the door, and stands with me on the side of the road and says to me, why are you doing this kind of stuff? Putting his best disappointed dad voice on. And I look at him and I don't say anything. I probably just mutter something under my breath, and he goes, I have a son about your age, and if I knew he was doing this kind of thing, well, we'd have some words. And I just kind of made a non-committal grunt. But in my head, I was thinking, sir, if you probably have a son my age, he's probably doing this or worse. But of course I didn't say that. So he cites me. He does not arrest me. He does not take me to court, but I have to go to court later. I go to court 3 months later, and I'm petrified because I have no idea what I'm doing. I go there with my mother. Now, as I had driven away from this scene, I spent at least an hour crying my head off, stopping at a Wendy's in Othello, Washington, and screaming at this boyfriend of mine, why the hell did you leave this in my car? What the fuck? But I was young and dumb. I ended up staying with him for 6 months, but that's a different story. So I go to court in Grant County, Washington. Now, in Grant County, the court that you have to go, the district and municipal court, it is in Moses Lake. And I'm sorry if you were a fan of Moses Lake, but fuck that place. Seriously. My only memories of that place are going to district and municipal court and going to literally the worst Italian restaurant I have ever been to, where the pasta tasted like Elmer's glue. It was horrible. So I go to district and municipal court, and my hands are sweating, and I don't know what to do, and neither does my mother. She's there with me. And at district and municipal court, this is how it goes. If it's a misdemeanor, which possession of drug paraphernalia was at the time, you go in there, but it's like you're in this hour block with like 30 other people. And some of them are doing preliminary hearings for felonies. Some of them, have robbed cars, beat up their spouses, whatever. And when it's my turn to go stand up there, I feel some of the eyes of the other cases look at me going, "Oh, cute, it's her first offense. I remember my first offense." Huh. So I'm up there, and I didn't know what to plead, guilty or innocent. And my mom and I, because we're both, have this kind of inert guilt complex built into us since we were children, was like, well, maybe you should just plead guilty because then they'll give you some kind of fine and then it'll be just over with. So I go up to the podium and the judge asks me, "How do you plead?" And I say, "Guilty." The judge looks at me, and he was a middle-aged man, balding except for the sides with brown hair, and had slight jowls just starting to form, and he takes off his glasses, and he looks at me and says, "Yeah, I'm not going to accept that plea." And I'm staring at him, confused as all get out. He says, "Okay, number one, this is your first offense. Number two, I don't even know if the search done on your car was legal. And you know what? Honestly, if I give you a guilty sentence, if I accept this, what you're saying right now, you're going to get a day in jail and you're going to get a $550 fine. And honestly, I think you can get better. So I am changing your plea to not guilty, and I'm going to see you here in another month. All right?" And I just go, "Okay." And I run away. Now, this is a good thing, right? But at the time, I was so frustrated, and I just wanted to get out of goddamn Moses Lake that I cried my head off, and I'm like, "I don't want to come back to court." But my mother convinced me, "Look, this is the best situation for you." So months go by, and I come back to court on St. Patrick's Day. And I dress, once again, ironically, in light blue, but not Napoleon Dynamite this time. It's a kind of cardigan sweater with a built-in collar and cuffs, trying to look professional and innocent. And I had a public defender assigned to me. Now, in the morning in the hotel, the public defender calls me and says, "Okay, we got a deal for you. We're going to give you what's called a deferred sentence," basically meaning that this case and your record will be totally clear if you just keep your nose clean for a year. And I say, "Okay." So we go in there, and I accept that, and it's over. It is finally over, and I never have to return to Moses Lake again. I did keep my nose clean for a year. I was hyper vigilant about it because I was terrified of what would happen if something happened again. So I was very, very careful. I drove the speed limit for like 3 years after that because I was just so terrified of anything coming up. Now a year had gone by and my record was clean. But now fast forward back to this background check. It had been 6 years since I had received that deferred sentence, and suddenly something has come up on my background check. Now, number one, I am mad. And I go to the Washington State Patrol over on Pacific, and I say, "Hey, what the hell? This was supposed to be off my record. What is your guys' problem?" And they go, "Wait, what? That shouldn't have happened. That shouldn't be even around." They even typed my name into their computer, and nothing came up at all. So I'm like, how is this happening? How did they find out? And so I do a little research online, and I figure out the company that caregivercraigslist.com is using to do their background checks, and they're based out of Ohio. So I call them, ring, 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 and I basically say, "What the fuck?" Now, they explained to me, "Oh, well, in Ohio here, we can actually see any kind of records, for at least 7 years." And I say, "But this didn't happen in Ohio. This happened in Washington State, number one. And number two, weed is no longer illegal, so should no longer be a problem. How did you even get this record? Are you sure you didn't get it illegally?" And they muttered some kind of, "Well, I don't know, blah, 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 blah." And I just hung up on them. I was so frustrated. They just gave me the runaround. I waited a month to hear back about the results of my background check, figuring, you know what, this isn't going to be a problem. It's going to be totally fine. No worries. Then a month goes by, and I get the results. They say, your account has been permanently deleted and you have been blocked from caregivercraigslist.com because we consider you a danger to our potential clients. And I write them a very strongly worded email, basically telling them that, number one, this is no longer legal in Washington state, so why is it a problem? Number two, the company that you're doing these background checks through is somehow obtaining these records illegally, and you should probably figure that out. And number three, I hate you, and I just want to stomp on you and fuck off. I was so mad. The injustice of it, the indignity. I was so ridiculously pissed, and I wrote this big, angry white lady email like, "Meh, how dare you treat me this way?" And I send it. And I get a response back, but I didn't even read it. It was in my email. I think the woman who responded to me was named like Tina or something like that. I just deleted it immediately. I didn't even want to hear what she had to say. Now, 6 months go by, and I need to find another job. And I apply for this summer camp job where I'll be teaching theater at this summer camp for girls in New Hampshire. And it's a very prestigious summer camp, I find out. But when I get all the paperwork, I find out I need to do an FBI background check. An FBI background check for summer camp? Okay, well, sure, I guess. And I submit it, but at this point, another year had gone by, 7 years. If this company was somehow doing background checks from Ohio, it should be okay, right? It shouldn't be on my record at all. And I'm just sweating bullets the entire time, waiting to hear back, am I going to be able to get this job? And I do. Absolutely nothing comes up. And this is the FBI. They get to see everything. Deferred or not, they get to see everything. There's probably surveillance tapes of me doing the most benign things that they could investigate if they really wanted to, which they probably wouldn't. But I got the job. I found out later why I needed to do this FBI background check because I didn't realize it at the time I applied, but when I got hired, I was going to summer camps and teaching theater to President Obama's daughters. Secret Service at camp? Hilarious. They get to wear t-shirts and cargo shorts, if any of you are interested, and they are really happy about that. But this didn't come up. It was okay. And I go to camp, and I spend the summer there, and I teach lots of girls theater, and it's really a wonderful experience. I have a great time. I do a whole East Coast trip and go to New York and see Broadway theater, and it's amazing. And then I get home, go back to kind of daily life, and I get another job. And then about a year to the day that I had submitted that initial background check, I get a letter from a law firm saying that this company from Ohio had been doing illegal background searches. You are entitled to, of a settlement divided up amongst probably many others, $30. $5 more than the original background check that I had paid for, which they didn't even refund me, those jerks. But I just looked at that, and the absolutely wonderfully smug satisfaction that I was right was worth more money than they ever could have paid me. Thank you.